Reports out there that Donald Trump isn't exactly pleased with his new campaign chief. Paul Manafort, a seasoned political insider, has promised America will see a much more presidential Trump from here on out. Trump brought in Manafort after struggling to wrangle delegates. But Politico reports Trump might be regretting the decision, growing frustrated with Manafort's efforts to rein him in. The article reads in part, quote, "Campaign insiders say it has become increasingly clear that Trump, for all his boasts about his ability to become more presidential, is simply unwilling or perhaps unable to follow through and resents efforts to transform him." Leslie Marshall is a syndicated radio talk show host and a Fox News contributor. Kevin McCullough is a talk show host with Salem Media Group. Thanks, both of you, for being here.
Thank you, John.
Before we begin the conversation, let's hear what Manafort himself had to say this week on Fox News Sunday.
The campaign setting, you're seeing the real Donald Trump in campaign mode, talking to people who believe in his candidacy. I was dealing with members of the Republican National Committee who have a different role from an organizational standpoint, and they wanted to know about things like, is he going to be giving speeches on policies?
That was after he made comments to the Republican National Committee meetings in Florida suggesting that Donald Trump was going to tone it down. So, Kevin, which Donald Trump are we going to see from here on out?
Is there any doubt from this point on? The only attempt at reforming his kind of wild, shoot-from-the-hip campaign style was to bring in Enforcer Manafort, and now he's kicking him back to the corner. We are going to see guns blazing, the ugliest ugly of American politics we've seen, and it's going to go all the way through. There's no stopping this at this point.
Leslie, do you have a read on which Donald Trump is going to appear?
I think, will the real Donald Trump please stand up? I think we've seen the real Donald Trump, which is very scary for many Americans. Although half Republicans may support him, that leaves another half who do not. But as a Democrat, I'm very happy about this, John, that the real Donald Trump will be out there front and center. You know what's interesting about this is I think this speaks to Donald's inability to work well with others, even people he hires to improve and better his situation. He's in a primary right now. That is very different than a general election in November if he becomes the nominee. You have to play nice with others, and especially if you're elected president, you have to play nice with Congress, with the Pentagon, and of course with our allies on an international level. Donald Trump, his shtick, if you will, has been working for a long time, but then he hit a bump in the road, and I think he would be best to listen to his advisor, obviously put good money into this guy, and that's not the case, and I think that's the true Donald Trump. He does not want to take advice from others.
But Kevin, you know, as you well know, there are people out there who think playing nice with others has gotten us into, you know, a quagmire in this country, and they're looking for political candidates who can kick some tail.
Yeah, I'm not sure that even that idea is fully been vetted out, because what we have turned the election of 2016 into is to the angriest, darkest side, darkest natures of who we are. And the Trump candidacy represents that in kind of the most vibrant way. And what it was really telling about this story coming out is that Trump understood at some level after Wisconsin that there's a whole segment of his own base, his own party, that he's got as much trouble trying to win over as any independents or Democrats he'll face going forward. The idea that you bring Manafort in, that you kind of kick Lewandowski down a peg or two, that you do some things to try to present a softer side or even just a more cooperative side. I mean, think about what we're talking about here. I'm agreeing with Leslie. This is dangerous material here that we're dealing with. But at the end of the day, Donald is not going to listen to anyone else. And whether you like that or whether it scares you to death, that's the reality that we're in.
Leslie, NBC was out with a poll that says, and I think you were alluding to this just a moment ago, that says Donald Trump is winning the support of Republican voters, or he's reached the 50% threshold among Republican voters for the first time. You know, for whatever his faults or his, you know, personal characteristics might be, he's warming to some people, or people are warming to him, I should say.
And honestly, John, can I do the I told you so? I predicted this, I'm not the only one, I'm sure, that when he would start to really gain more ground and traction and look like he would be the nominee or close to that we would see more and more Republicans stand beside him. I think there are a few reasons for this. One, because he is an outsider. He's not a Washington guy. He doesn't have the political background. Two, because when they look at the other options, Kasich being too moderate and even left-leaning for many Republicans, Ted Cruz perhaps being too right except to the evangelical community, that's an appeal. And I will agree with Kevin. He's brought out, I think, not in a brighter way, the dark side of some Americans in our mindset. I think in an ugly way. And I know that Trump speaks to political correctness. I think it's okay now for us to be darker and to be ugly. And that's sad. I think it's a sad statement for the American people, the American voter, but that has definitely helped Donald Trump.
Well, if you two are agreeing, we will mark this day on our calendars. It's Super Tuesday on the East Coast, and you two agree. Leslie Marshall, Kevin McCullough, thank you.
Thank you, John.